Hello, and welcome back to the My First Marathon podcast, where we interview runners in all stages of their running careers about their first marathon experiences to prove to you that anyone can run a marathon. My name is Taylor, and today's episode is one of those stories that quietly reminds you how powerful starting late, starting scared, or starting unsure can truly be. Nancy is someone who never considered herself athletic. She was the kid who preferred reading to playing outside, grew up believing running was something only extreme people did, and spent most of her adult life focused on raising her family. Running didn't enter her life until her late 30s when she found herself needing an escape from a season that felt heavy and overwhelming. What started as a slow run down a country road turned into a habit, then a goal, then a string of half marathons she swore would be the furthest that she would ever go. But somewhere in between learning how to fuel, navigating busy mom life, and slowly proving to herself that she could do hard things, that line started to blur. In this episode, Nancy walks us through how she went from saying, "I could never run a marathon," to standing on the start line of the Richmond Marathon, surrounded by family, community, and a deep sense of gratitude for what her body and mind were capable of. This is a story about patience, persistence, and what can happen when you stop waiting to feel like a runner and simply start showing up. Without further ado, let's jump into the episode. Please welcome Nancy. Nancy, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm super excited to talk to you and break down your first marathon story, which I was also at. You ran Richmond very recently. But before we kind of get into the story and everything, just thank you so much for coming on. I'm excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Amazing. All right, cool. Well, we like to start from the beginning on the show. So how did movement start for you? How did we end up in this world?
So, movement, this is funny. I was the kid who loved to read and hated to play outside. My mom would have to force me to go outside and play. So, I didn't do sports. When I tried to play with friends at school or whatever else, I was terrible at it. So, I just didn't. So I was not active. I think the most active thing I did in high school was 1 year of color guard and marching band, and that was it. So I got married young. I had 6 children. I have siblings that run marathons, ultra marathons, and they would come run with us. And I'm like, are you crazy? Only like somebody who is being chased by a bear runs, right? And so I was totally anti-running. I think I ran a couple of like turkey trots with my family on Thanksgiving. I'm like, who does this? This is stupid. 5K, that's like the most I would ever dream of. And then around age 39, back in 2019, life just got hard for me personally. And I literally was just escaping the of my house. And so I literally walked out my front door. I live in the country, and I just started running. Like, it was a slow run, but I just started running to clear my head. And I was hooked. I mean, it was like the craziest thing. So I started running the end of 2019, just very little bits here and there. Knees started killing me, and I realized my Walmart shoes were not cutting it. So I went and got fitted for shoes. And I set myself some big goals in 2020 to do just like I said, I'm going to run 450 miles this year. And I thought, that's insane. Who runs 450 miles? Who's never been a runner? But I started doing it and I loved it. And so here I am.
Here we are. Yeah, amazing. Well, cool. So your running journey, we always say like running either finds you in some place in your life when you need it, or like you stumble upon running at some point. So it sounds like for you stumbled upon running when you really needed it in your life. And I guess what was the escape like for you? Like what was it about those first couple of runs that you were like, wow, this is something that's actually really helping me?
Well, it was just I was able to clear my mind. Like I said, I live out in the country. I'm right at the foot of these two beautiful mountains. And so I would run towards the mountains. And whether it be at sunset in the evening or first thing in the morning after I got my kids to school, it just was like the fresh air and just moving my body. It just cleared my mind. And so I always say I don't get a runner's high while I'm running. But as soon as I finish, I'm like, I can conquer the world. So that's what it did for me. It just cleared my head and just allowed me to think clearly. When I'm out running, it's just like all the problems that the daily life have as a busy mom, they just sort of disappear while I'm running. And so that it's that hour, 30 minutes, whatever, where I just get to just experience nature and just enjoy me.
Yeah, I love that. Very cool. And then I know from reading your form before this that you've ran several half marathons. So I'm sure that this kind of manifested into this half marathon journey. But how did we go from a couple of runs, just to kind of relieve some stress to I'm going to sign up for a race?
I started like getting serious about running in 2020. And I was like, I'm going to run some races this year. And COVID hit. And so I was like,
Mm.
oh, shoot, but I'm a very goal oriented person. So I was like, I need something to work towards. So I found a virtual 10K and I was like, I have never run 6 miles. I don't know if I can do it. But my son, who was 19 at the time, he has super long legs. He's like, I'll do it with you, mom. And so on Memorial Day, we went and ran a 10K and I was like, oh, I did that. I ran 6 miles, but I just stayed around that 3 to 6 mile. That's where I stayed. And then in 22, I was talking to my sister who lives in Richmond. She runs either the half or the full every year. And she was like, you should run the half marathon. I was like, are you crazy? I can't do that. And she was like, yes, you can. And so on a whim, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. So I signed up for the Richmond half. That was my very first. And that was in 22. Anybody who ran it that year, it was a record high for the Richmond marathon
Mm.
that year. When we finished, it was 78 degrees and this was only the half. So we're
Oh my
talking like at
gosh.
10 o'clock in the morning. It was so hot. The sun, there was not a cloud in the sky. I didn't feel properly prepared for it because I'd never done anything like that. So I learned a lot from that first one, just about fueling and hydration and all of that. But I was hooked. So after I ran that one, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm doing, I mean, I within 24 hours signed up for the next year. So
Love
I
that.
have, that has been I love the Richmond Marathon, that whole course. Of course, I did the half 3 years and then I did the full. And I love the course. So that got me hooked. When I ran that first half marathon, I was like, okay, this is the perfect distance. But I will tell you, I had so many people say, so when are you going to run a full? Because I think I've ran a total of 7 halves. And people would say, when are you going to run a full? I'm like,
Yes.
never. And I would say, my body is not created for that. I can't do that. I will never run a full marathon. Those are athletes. Those are special people. And I am not special.
Mm.
So that was my mantra about full marathons.
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny. We like looking back on it now. I'm sure you're thinking that that's crazy. Like that's insane that was even a thought that crossed my mind at some point because you do just like you prove it to yourself along the way. But I think when before you get to those points where you're proving it to yourself over and over and over again, like it's really hard to wrap your head around the full picture. But I guess for you were mentioning some things about your first half marathon, like fuel and things like that you felt like you needed to change. So what were some of those areas that you worked to improve over the different half marathons that you ran?
Okay, so having 6 children, let's just say I sometimes have to use the bathroom more frequently than younger runners who haven't had kids.
Sure.
So
Sure.
I was in this mindset of I can't drink too much water because then I'll have to stop and
Mm.
use the porta potty, and I didn't want to do that because I had this mindset of don't stop, keep going. So I did not drink enough, and it ended up being a record high. So it was like a perfect storm. So once I
Mhm.
realized I was running with my sister and I was just discouraged, and she said, do you want me to go on and just let you be? And I was like, I think yes. I think yes. And so I
Mhm.
took a few
Yeah.
minutes. I texted my husband. I said, I'm so discouraged. I feel like I'm failing at this. I'm miserable. I was so dehydrated. And, he's encouraging me, like, you got this, keep going. I'm praying for you. And I was like, okay. So I stopped at every single hydration stop from there on out. I drank a cup of water and a cup of noon, and I started feeling better. And so I finished strong, but it was not what I anticipated. And I also I didn't really understand fueling. So I only did one gel during that whole race. And I think I really could have
Mm.
used some more electrolytes.
Gotcha. Yeah. For I guess how long was it in between your first half marathon and your second half marathon?
So my second half marathon was the following year at the
Oh,
Richmond Half.
okay.
So it was a
Gotcha.
whole other year. That was the next one I did. So
Cool.
I would do some other little races here and there, but my next half was Richmond.
Okay, got it. So you had a full year really to kind of like put these pieces together. So fuel
Yes.
is something, and the reason why I'm like kind of focusing on this is like that's something that comes up so much for new runners. Is like how do I figure out fuel? So for you, when you were going along that journey for yourself, like how did you change that during the year in between the two Richmond halves?
So I really started doing a lot of research. And again, never because that is part of my first marathon story as well. Fueling is a big part of that story as well.
Yeah.
But But for the halves, I started, just doing some research and like, okay, I'm going to like every 30 minutes, I'm going to do fuel. So I started really working on my longer runs, like practicing that. I hated
Mm,
wearing hydration. So I would just plant water bottles around town when I was running, or I would just do a loop where I would pass my car again to make sure I was drinking enough. And what I started
yeah.
noticing is I felt better while I was running. Because obviously, when you're doing a half in November, you start training in the heat of summer and it is
Right.
hot. So I really started practicing that in the summer so that I would have that down. But I still would refuse to wear a hydration vest because I just thought I can't put any more weight on my body. So I'm not going to
Mm.
wear my water. I've now changed that stance.
Yeah, you kind of have to a little bit in
You can,
marathon training. It's really hard
yes,
to like plan for those longer runs without one,
yes,
but that makes sense. I love that approach that you were able to, yeah, like develop a fuel strategy, and then I always love when people are like take that strategy to their long runs and really practice it. I think that's the best way to learn how to fuel is to do that on those long runs and really dial it in. So that's
yeah.
awesome. And I guess we'll maybe not touch on every single one of your halves, but I'm curious, since your first half you were feeling a little less confident, how did the second half go? Like what pieces were able to click for the second time around?
The second half was amazing. That was in 23. The weather was phenomenal. I think it was 39 when we started and like
Oh,
45 when we
love.
ended. It was just like perfect weather. I PR'd by like 7 minutes, which I was
Let's
super
go.
excited about. So I was like, yes, and at that point I was 43 years old and, somebody who would have never been active, never been an athlete. I was like, I just PR'd at 43 years old. Like it was just this incredible feeling. And I just went into it feeling stronger. I've had a lot of issues with my running, with my hips and different things. But I really focused on the stretching and all of the like I really started focusing on stretching because of some issues I was having with my hips. So I just felt like I went into that one just really ready, like knowing what to expect. You just, no matter how much people try to tell you, you just don't know. So
Yeah.
after having done one, I'm like, okay, I got this. And the temperature was amazing. So
Yeah, that the temperature makes a big difference, but it sounds like you were
yes,
able to do a whole lot of things with the second one that ended up just
yes.
being an overall better experience. So that's
Oh,
amazing.
yes.
And then I guess over your next couple of half marathons, because you had what did you say, seven? So you had
Yeah.
five other half marathons after
Yeah.
that before your first marathon. Like where along that journey did the idea of running a marathon start to creep into your head?
So honestly, I did a couple of spring halves, which I loved in my area, and those were great. I PR'd again, and so I was like, I'm on this roll. I'm PRing, and then I ran Richmond in 24, the half, and I ran it with two friends who had never run a half marathon before. They were like sort of runners, but just kind of dabbled in it. And I was like, girls, you have got to run a half marathon with me. And they're like 10 years younger than me, and they're like, well, I guess if you can do it, we can do it. I'm like, yes, you can. So we all ran the half together and they did a great job. And it wasn't my best half, but, I had fun. And at the end of that, I was like, huh, I could do that. I think I could. I think I could do that. And I got the email from Richmond, like, if you sign up now, it's, only whatever, such a, and, I'm a thrifty mom. And so I was like, if I sign up now, I was like, I could save a lot of money, but I have a whole year to train. Like I can do this. And if
Yeah.
anything changes, I can just back down to the half marathon. So I had that like out in my head. I'm like, I'm going to sign up for it, but I have the out. So
Yeah.
I texted my two friends and I was like, I texted them a screenshot and I was like, you will not believe what I just did. And they're like, oh my gosh, I thought you'd never do that. And I'm like, I know. They're like, Nancy, you're crazy. And I'm like, I know I'm crazy. Well, they disappear from our text. And about 20 minutes later, they both come back on the text and they send me screenshots. They're like, we couldn't let you run your first marathon alone. And so they signed
Let's
up
go.
also.
I love
So
that.
yeah, I mean, that honestly was incredible. I don't have where I live. The closest running club is like 45 minutes away. And as a busy mom, I do most of
Mm,
my runs after I get my kids to school. And so I can't run at 6 a.m. when everybody else is because I'm getting my kids ready for school. So to have friends that we just kept each other accountable throughout the whole journey, it was great. It was awesome.
I love that. Yeah, community is so important. We talk about it a lot on this show, but like, yeah, having people around you, especially for your first marathon, that can hold you accountable and like pick you up on the days where you're not feeling great. Like, it's huge. Can make a huge difference on your journey overall for sure.
Absolutely.
Were these were these people local to you, or were you like
They
just
are,
staying in touch
yeah.
and holding each other accountable? Okay,
Yeah, they are local. We go to church together. So we're good
awesome.
friends anyway. And like I said, they're younger than me. So sometimes I would be intimidated, but they'd be like, Nancy, you don't need to be intimidated by us. But
Yeah,
really, they were so encouraging. So, on the days where we would try to run, especially once we got on the higher mileage, we would try to run our long runs together. We would plan it around their work schedules. And, they would like run ahead a little bit while I needed to slow down and they'd come back to me and run with me. They were so super supportive and encouraging. And that really helped me because there were the days where I was like, why am I doing this? Like 18
yeah.
miles, who runs 18 miles on a Friday? Like it just, you just start to doubt yourself when you get in those higher miles and you're tired and I didn't realize the impact that training would have, not just on my body, but my whole personal life because you spend so much time running.
Yes, yes, yeah. It really takes over for a period of time for sure.
Yeah.
What were some of those things that you were feeling like, especially as a busy mom? I'm sure there was a lot, but like, what were some of those things that you were having to sacrifice, say no to? Like, what did that? How were you balancing life and running when you were started training for your first marathon?
So my family, I'm not going to say they suffered because they didn't suffer, but I know that when I got done training and it was all over, my husband would be like, "Oh wow, our house is so clean," and I'm like, "Cause I'm here." Because I also help him with a couple of small businesses that we own, so I'm like I am all over the place. So I still had to make sure all my work still happened, but things at home, the kids would get home from school. What are we having for dinner? I'm like, I don't know, leftovers. Because I just got home
Yeah,
from running. So I would say like just it was a lot of, I guess, even just emotional strain. Like some days where I'm just like, I don't feel like doing this. And you have to force yourself, you look at your schedule. This is the only day I can run 18 miles this week. I can't fit it in anywhere else. And if I don't do it, I'm going to be behind on my training schedule. So it's like you've got to do it
right.
and you have to. I just had to make my feet move, even if my head wasn't there. Like I just had to say, okay, lace up the shoes, we're going out. And after a couple miles, my heart would start to follow, and I'd be like, okay, we're in this, we got this. I'm pushing myself, we're going to finish.
Yeah.
But sometimes I just had to push myself to get out there and do those long runs.
And it's about, like you said, it's about getting out there and just starting. Because I think a lot of time, like you'll settle into the run. It's the getting out there
Yes.
that's the hardest part. So
Yes.
getting like building that muscle, and then I'm sure now after being on the other side of your first marathon that like those moments where you push yourself to do it, like that's what really helps you out when you get to race day is being able to push through
Yes.
something when you don't want to push through something. So I'm sure that helped you out tremendously down the road. But
Absolutely.
your charted territory going into marathon training was the half marathon. So I want to like talk about what was the first time you ran over a half marathon, like your 14-mile run. What was that like?
Okay, so I had run a couple of ultra trail races that were like 16 miles. So
Oh, cool. Okay,
I had done a little bit higher mileage, but I had done those practicing them up in the mountains. So I would run up a mountain, down a mountain. So it wasn't the same as running on the road. So when I hit that
right.
first, the three of us, Ashley, Lauren, and I were together, and we hit that. I think it was our 15-mile run. And we all just looked at each other like, did we just do that? Did we just run 15 miles? It was just this feeling of, I did that. And I thought, okay, I could do 11 more miles, right? I mean, I could walk that if I had to. So
Yeah,
every,
yeah,
every, every week that we increased in mileage, it was like, I did that. And it helped my confidence. Like, okay, I just did that. I can do the next. Which is why you don't just go out and go from a half to 26. It's a process because it's not just about your legs. I don't think from everything I've been through, it's not just about getting your legs ready. It's about the
yeah,
mental game because there is so much mentally in running a full marathon. Like I didn't realize how much I would need the mental ability on race day when pushing myself past because our longest long run was 22. Pushing myself like I hit 22 and I was like, okay, this is all new from here out. But it was like, I got this. I can do this. And it was definitely
yeah.
mental. And I will say, I found your podcast. I think I was around Oh gosh, I think I only had maybe 3 weeks left till race day, and I was bored
Yeah.
of music because when you run for several hours at a time, it's just and I'm
It
normally a
gets
music
really
listen I
old.
listen to music, and I've tried listening to podcasts, but I would, like, listen to, like, parenting podcast or whatever. I'm like, "This
Yeah.
is so boring." And so I just started, like, searching in my podcast, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm running a fir okay, here we go, let's listen to this." And
Yeah.
I couldn't get enough. I think the first one I listened to um, was a lady who was maybe it was Disney that she ran was her first one, and I don't remember her name, so
Yeah,
I'm
maybe
sorry. But
Caitlin.
yes, so
No, it's
it
okay.
was it was the way she. I think what encouraged me was she wasn't a fast runner, and she talked about wanting to make sure she did not miss the cutoff. And I thought, okay, this is because I still had in my mind that only fast people run marathons. Like I'm
Right.
slow and I'm old. I'm not old, but I'm older, so I'm older, I'm slow. And hearing her, I was like, it's okay to be slow. Like the point is I am running 26.2 miles. It doesn't matter if I finish in 6:15 or 3:15. The point is I'm doing it. And so
Yeah.
just hearing her story really meant so much, which goes back to the community piece. Like what you're doing and bringing light to all different types of runners in their journey, I think is so important. And it was just a huge encouragement to me. And so then I kept listening.
I love that. And thank you for saying that. Yeah, I think that I love that it's my podcast obviously, but I think that there's so many beautiful corners of the running world that like until you find them, it's really easy to feel isolated and like I'm the only one going through this. Like no everybody else that runs a marathon isn't like me. But then when you find the people that are like you, you're like, "Oh, there's one of you and then there's two of you and then there's a whole corner of the internet of you." And then you're like, I found my
Yes.
people, I found my community, and it's so beautiful when that happens, and you're able to like see yourself in other people are maybe further in their journeys than you, or maybe they're going through the same thing as you. I like that's obviously why I love to do this, but I love when it's able to make an impact on other people and other communities as well. That's awesome. I love that.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and then I always also say like spectate a race. If you want to see people that look like you in a marathon, like you'll see all types of people spectating a race. It's can be
Absolutely.
super impactful. Yeah, yeah. Well, very cool. So yeah, so you overcome this 15-mile run. I guess what were some of the other points of training that you feel like stand out to you, either like in a positive way or in a tough way? Like what were the runs that you felt like you really were pulling on when you got to marathon day?
Um, my 18-mile run was hard. We had gone to a different spot than we normally go. We wanted to try something different, and I had my hydration. I thought I had it all figured out, and I've just put a lot of noon in my vest. I was like, okay, I'm going to be good. I'm going to be well hydrated. It was quite warm that day, so because here in Virginia we have warm weather sometimes in October, so it was
Mm,
warm. And as I started running, like the more I ran, I just was feeling dehydrated. And I'm like, I ended up finishing my bag, which was 70 ounces. And I'm like, I can't be dehydrated. Like I'm not sweating that much. So then the following run that we ran, 20 miles, I had very similar issues. Well, come to find out, happened to have a doctor's appointment the following week. And so mentioned it to my doctor. Like, I was like, something wasn't right. Everything was
mm,
just, and she was like, I think you actually had too many electrolytes. So I learned
mm.
from that you can actually have too many electrolytes, like the concentration. I just thought more electrolytes, that can't hurt you. So that was very helpful to discover that before race day because I was able to balance water and electrolytes. So I did that very differently
Yeah.
on race day than I had done. But that just sort of made me feel miserable. I think 18 miles, I did it. I pushed myself to finish, but I had to work so hard to finish that 18 miles that I literally was like, am I going to be able to finish
Mm,
26? Like I barely did 18.
yeah.
So it did on race day. I remembered 18 and 20, both of those were hard runs. I remember like, okay, I did that. I thought I couldn't do any more. And then I did 20 and after 20, I did 22. So I can do this. So yes, I did
Yeah.
definitely. I was thankful that I had some hard runs. And I remember hearing you talk about that on one of your podcasts. Like, it's actually good to have some of those harder training runs because then you
Yeah.
realize like there's hard in this. And race day
Yeah.
isn't guaranteed to go perfectly. You're not guaranteed to have perfect weather, which, the marathon was quite warm this year compared
Yes.
to other
Yes.
years. So, but I was ready for the warmth.
Yeah, it's all about the like it's so hard for your first marathon to know that though. Like it's so hard to when you haven't seen it come to fruition for the first time to know that the hard runs matter. Like when you first have a crappy 18-mile run for the first time, you're like, "Oh my God, like what am I
I
going
should
to do
quit.
now?" Like I should quit. Yeah, if I can't run 18, I can't run 26. Like it's over for me.
Yeah.
So it's so hard to know that those are the runs that matter, and those are the ones that are impactful. And like you don't think about the runs that go well when things aren't going well in the marathon. You're not like, oh yeah, I remember that really awesome 16-mile run I had. You're like, man, I remember when I really pushed through. So
Yes.
yeah, it's huge and super important to have those ebbs and flows. I think through your first marathon block, but
Yes.
yeah. So, and you said you peaked at 22. Is that what you said? That was your longest
Yes.
run?
Yep.
Very cool. So how was that? That's like usually the run where you're either like, yes, I'm feeling good, I can run 26, or where you're like, all right, well, we're gonna see how this goes. How was that
Well,
last run for you?
it wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad run. It was still hard. But I finished on a high. So I finished and I was like, yes. And I remember looking at my friends and I said, if I have to walk the last four, I will finish that marathon. Like there was at that point,
Yeah.
there was no doubt in my mind that I was going to finish this marathon. There was like, I mean, it was in my mind. Like I could walk 4 more miles right now if I had to. So at that point I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I've got this.
Yeah. I love that. Cool. And then we go into taper from there. Did you have a 2 week or a 3 week taper?
2 week.
2 weeks. Okay, cool. How did it feel? Were you feeling a little antsy, a little
Um,
like anxiety, or did it feel good to give the legs a break?
it felt good to give the legs a break, but I was like, what do I do? What do I do? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I have all this
like it was
time
this
now all of a
feeling
sudden.
of, well, and you also feel like, am I going to lose everything? Like we would be texting each other,
Right.
like, are we going to remember how to run? Like, are our legs going to be able to do that? So
Yeah.
it definitely was something that was, I wouldn't say I loved it. I enjoyed having my extra time. I did enjoy that. I got some projects done in my home that had been neglected, but I remember feeling like, am I gonna be able to run after this? Like if I don't run for this long, am
Yeah.
I gonna be able to do it?
Yeah, there's the tapers, like it's a lot of up and down, just like training is, even in those 2 weeks of just like, yeah, what do I do with my time? But this also feels kind of great to give the legs a break. But it does help you feel a lot fresher when you get to race day to kind of
And
give yourself
actually,
that time.
I made a
Yeah.
mistake. It was a 3 week taper. It wasn't 2 week. I was thinking there was 2 weeks we tapered, and then the 1 week we didn't run at all. So it was a 3 week. It was a 3 week taper. That's what it was.
Okay. Okay.
So that
Cool.
was like
Cool.
two
That
months
makes sense.
ago.
Yeah. It, it's okay, dude.
Yeah.
Training is a lot. Like
Yes.
you were going through a lot and planning a lot, so
Yes.
there's a whole lot going
Yes.
on. But yeah. So leading up to race day, I guess we talked about the body and how the body was feeling. But how were you feeling mentally leading up to race day? Like excited, like anxious. What was going through your head?
So excited. My oldest daughter lives in Colorado. She planned to fly in to be there for me. I had a lot of family that was going to be there. So the just knowing and of course, but Richmond has like the best spectators. They just do. It is like an
Yeah.
awesome crowd. And so I knew that
Yeah.
going in, like just from the half, that the spectators were going to be awesome. But I was really excited. And I think because I had told myself for so long I could never do that. And I'll try not to get emotional. Here I am at the end. I've done all of the training. Like I completed my training, and the only thing left to do is run the race. Like I just have to go across the finish line at this point. So there was this sense of pride, like especially that last week. I ran on Monday and then I didn't run at all the rest of the week. And it was just this, oh my gosh, like I am getting ready to run a marathon. Me, Nancy, who couldn't get herself up to go play outside when she was a kid, and I could barely run the mile in high school. I'm running a marathon, and to be able to like show my kids, first of all, my daughters, like you can do anything you put your mind to. Even your mom, who has never been like physically active, like I'm running a marathon. Just to
Yeah.
moms, to middle-aged women, like you can do whatever you put your mind to. Like you got to put the work in, but you can do it. Like get up there and move. And so I think this at this point, I was like, I did this. So there was this gratitude. I just dealt with so much gratitude that last week leading up to race day and then during the race, but that's part of my race story. So I'll get to that in a minute. But just this gratitude of like, I'm able to do this. There are people that can't. There are people that would
Right.
love to be able to walk a mile, much less be able to run 26. And so for me, I just was really dwelling on gratitude for what I had done and what I was getting ready to do.
I love that. I love that you were able to kind of sit in that and reflect on it before the marathon too, because like I know it sounds cheesy, you hear it all the time, but like the marathon is the training, and I think taking a second before you run the race to really sit in that and be like, I just did all the work. Like I have one last long run. That's all that's left for me is this last really big long run that I'm gonna have to do.
Yes.
But like everything else, I'm done. Like I did it. I quote unquote ran the marathon in terms of the work that you put in. So I love that you
Yes.
were able to kind of sit in that before the race. That's great.
Yes.
Very cool. And then you said that you live kind of like out in the country, so you were driving into Richmond. Were you like, could you, what did the logistics look like? I'll just ask that, like
Okay.
traveling in for the race.
Um, so the three of us were running the full marathon, and then we had two friends from church that were running their first half marathon. So we all
Very
rode
cool.
together. We got up Friday morning. We got to Richmond in time to have lunch, a very high carb, yummy lunch. My sister lives there, so she was giving us recommendations. So we ate at two amazing places that day. So we had a really great lunch. We went and checked into our hotel, got everything just situated. We were in two different hotels. Those of us running the marathon, we actually were staying like very close to the start line, and then the girls running the half, they were very close to the half start. And so then we went to the expo, which just taking it all in. I've been to the Richmond Expo before, but going as a marathon runner, I'm like, just taking it all in, my first marathon sticker, just all of it. I was just soaking all of it in. We took so many pictures. I think that was the big thing. We didn't want to be rushed. We wanted to be able to just soak in the experience because
Yeah.
you only get one first marathon. And so we wanted to really enjoy our first marathon experience. So we did. We took it all in and took all the pictures, and it was great. It was great.
Yeah. Well, you're VIP all of a sudden at the expo, like you're not there for the
Everybody's
half, you're there
yelling.
for the full.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
right. I love that. That's cool. So you traveled in, and then yeah, what did night before look like? Like that's usually
Okay.
for me at least when all the like the nerves kind of settle in, like the anxious feelings kind of settle in. What was the night before like for you?
Okay, so after the expo, we got dinner, a really great dinner with so much pasta. I've never eaten so much pasta in all my life. I'm kind of anti-pasta right now. I'm taking a break from it.
Yeah.
But we just ate a whole lot, and then we went back to the hotel. We got all comfy in our jammies, laid everything out, and we're just like, there's this nervous energy that it was like I would lay something out, and then I would move something, and I'm like, now I need to do this, and I was just sort of scattered. My brain was scattered because I was nervous. I really was. I was nervous, excited, but
Yeah.
nervous. So laid everything out, and we all took our melatonin to try to help us go to sleep. Unfortunately, all three of us, and none of us knew this in the middle of the night because we're trying to be quiet to not bother the others, but we all had trouble sleeping that night. I think it was excitement,
Mm-hmm.
but it was like I would fall asleep and I would wake up and I'm like, oh, it's only been an hour all night long. So
Mm,
it was rough. And I kept saying, oh, please, if I could just fall asleep right now, I'll get 2 hours of sleep. I need 2 hours of sleep. And so when the
right.
alarm went off at 5 a.m., we all were like, did you sleep at all? And we're like, no. And we're like, oh no, how are we going to do this?
Mm,
So it was this feeling of, and looking back, I don't think there's anything we could have done differently. We got back to the hotel early. We got
yeah.
relaxed and cozy, and we chatted a little bit. And we took melatonin. We turned out the lights. But I think it was just the excitement of the unknown, and
Yeah.
also the excitement of we're getting ready to do the hardest thing physically any of us have ever done.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of nerves that just kept us awake. But that, I mean, it is what it is.
I've had runners on the show that have ran 10 marathons and said that they haven't had a single good night's sleep for any of them. So I think
Good to
that's
know.
that's a normal marathon experience. Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard to kind of like settle the nerves the night before, but But yeah, we got to the start line regardless. So morning up,
Yes.
I'm sure the excitement and the energy was just building and building and building. Richmond was like the crowd of runners was massive this year. So it was a big one. What was it like showing up and getting situated the morning of, getting to the start line and all that good stuff?
Oh my goodness, it was amazing. And like you said, it was a sold out. All three races were completely sold out. So the crowds were amazing. Everybody, that's what I love about the running community that I didn't realize existed until I got into this. But everybody's so
Mm-hmm.
encouraging. And, people would see our first marathon sticker and be like, this is your first, yeah. So everybody's excited. We found our way to the truck to drop off our bags, checked those in. While I was tearing off the check-in thing off of my bib, it like tore my bib in half. So I'm like, oh shoot, what if it
No.
completely comes apart and it doesn't calculate? So I found somebody with some tape at the truck and they helped me tape it up. So I'm like, okay, that's taped up. That was like just added this extra, like, oh no, what if, just this extra thing.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
we started stretching, and I can't tell you how many times we cried that morning. I mean, we would look at each other and be
Oh,
like,
I love
oh
that.
my gosh, we're doing this. Would cry. So we're in the start line and like, pretty far back because our wave was far back, and just people everywhere. And we're looking at the start line and just the emotions. And then all of a sudden I hear my name, and my sister had run all the way up from the half. She was running the half marathon that year. She ran all the way up from her start line to give me a hug. And that made me just lose it again, and just so many tears. And she's
Oh,
like, you've got this, I'm there for you, I'm cheering for you. So it was electric. I mean, that I can't, I'm trying to, but I can't put into words how amazing it truly was. It was incredible.
yeah. Well, it sounds like you had so many people there around you, supporting you, running it also. Like, I'm sure that
Yes.
just added a whole layer of just like special to the experience, just having like that many
Yes.
people around you too. Yeah,
Yes.
very cool. So we start. We'll break down the race now. So I usually
Okay.
say let's maybe start with just the first half, since that's like
Okay.
the charted race territory for you. So yeah, talk
Yep.
to us, walk us through the first half of your first marathon.
Okay, so I ran with my friends for the first 5 miles. I am notorious for starting out way too fast. I get
Mm-hmm.
excited and I take off, and then a few miles in, I'm like, oh shoot. So we were very determined to stay slow. They were like, Nancy, you have to stay with us, because even though they're faster than me in our half marathon, I took off ahead of them, and then they ended up passing me. So we stayed together for like 5.5 miles. Um, we recorded a video every mile together, which was just really fun, to have this whole video of like just every mile how we were feeling. It was just so much fun.
Yeah,
So
it's
at five
cute.
and a half miles, I needed to use the restroom. So they just went a hunt and left. And at that point, I was like, okay, I knew I'd be alone for the rest of the race. So that's a lot of miles to run. But I just was like, okay, we've got this. And so I just kept running. I had noon in my hydration vest, and I would stop at every water stop and get a whole cup of water. So I was doing both. I was trying to drink every mile, to keep myself hydrated. And then I was doing every 25 minutes, I was doing some sort of fueling. So I was
Mm-hmm.
really staying on top of that. I was like, I don't want to totally burn out before I get to the end. So I did a really good job. I think I did a really good job of staying on top of my hydration. I never felt dehydrated, and I never fully lost my tank.
Yeah.
So I just honestly, I look back, I smiled like the whole race. Like I just did. I think, like I said before, I just kept my whole race. I was like, I am so grateful. I am doing this. And it was November, right? November 15th. And our church was doing like a gratitude series. And so I was already in that mindset of gratitude, but I was like, I, I'm doing this. And so there was just, I was like, I am thankful for my legs. I'm thankful for my motivation. I'm thankful for my stubbornness because I am stubborn. So I was just being thankful for all the things that got me to this point. For my husband, who hates any kind of physical activity, but he has been my biggest cheerleader this entire time. He's there at every race with my kids, cheering me
Oh,
on.
I love that.
And of course, for the marathon, he's running around to different spots to catch up to me. So just all the things I was grateful for. So I, I met up with my family around, I think it was 11 miles. And my legs felt like they were burning at one point, and I looked down, and I had used Glide everywhere. I was wearing shorts I had been training in and all the things, but I looked down and I've got blood running down my legs. Well, I
Oh
had
no.
been sweating a whole lot more, I guess, than normal. It was quite warm. And I had just
Yeah.
rubbed a huge blister or a huge spot on my leg. But right where my family was,
Mm.
there was a lady there who was just I think she was a coach. She was one of Richmond coaches. And she said, I have Glide, I have Glide. And she also had some like Vaseline. So she helped me, took some time, got that all. So it did bother me the rest of the race. I was so grateful because it was
Yeah.
painful. So that was a huge, like, that was just a great thing that she just happened to be right there. And so as soon as I left my family, I'm running and I realize my watch has stopped. Like, it has not paused,
Mm.
it has stopped. It turned off my workout.
Mm.
So I had to restart my workout. And all of us smartwatch users, I want the badge. I want the first marathon badge. So
Right,
I
right.
was like, in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, can't believe this happened. Can't believe this happened. I'm texting my friends, my watch
Yeah.
stopped, and all the things. But I'm like, okay, so then I don't have the accurate mileage on my watch. So I'm looking down,
Right.
like calculating, okay, I know I was at this mileage, I think, when I turned it back on. So I was working my brain constantly, just trying to figure out, wait, when did I have my last gel? Like, so my brain was like working in overtime. But I made it to the half, and you see the 13.1, and I'm like, halfway, halfway. So that was the first half was really good. It was really good.
Good, good. Oh man, that sucks about the watch though.
I
That's such a
know.
like, oh, stomach drop feeling when that happens. I feel you there. How did were you said that you were able to restart it though, so you were
So
able
I
to like
did
at least
restart it,
track
and
from
then
there.
at the end, I I like asked ChatGPT. I was like, "How do I fix this?" I have an Apple Watch, so I was able to like put the two workouts together in Strava. It can be done.
Perfect.
Put them together in Strava and then add it to my watch. But I still didn't get the Apple full marathon badge. But that's okay. I'll get
Oh,
it another
oh,
day.
brutal. Yeah. Yo, you've got time. You got time.
I've got time.
Well, good. I'm glad you were able to turn it back on.
Yeah.
For yeah, let's walk through the second half where there's usually a point where things really start to get tough. So maybe talk about like between the half marathon point and when you got to that point.
Okay, so I 13, I'm running, everything's going good. It's a beautiful day. I've got text messages, and I wear my AirPods when I run. And so I'm
Mhm.
hearing messages played in my ear, like from friends texting. And you should be at this point. We had a bunch of friends from our church. We have a whole running group at church. And so they were all tracking us on the app to see where we were. So I'm getting text messages of like, you just passed this point. Good job. Keep going. So that was really encouraging. I would get like just something funny. They would say something funny. It would make me laugh. And just, it really, really kept me going, I think, especially in those. I didn't see my family from 11 until 20, I think it was. And so that was a long time to be alone. I did have a surprise. My friends' husbands, they actually said, I think Nancy's almost here, even though their wives had already passed. And so they waited with their kids. And so at 16 miles, all of a sudden,
Oh,
I saw them like in the distance. I was like, wait, is that? Oh, it is. And so I was like, yeah, I didn't stop, but it was just great to have somebody else yelling my name at that point.
yeah.
But I know it sounds, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I just kept telling myself, like, this is good. Like, you are doing something. And I think because I always said I would never run a marathon, the fact that I was in the middle of a freaking marathon, I just was so thankful that I just kept, I was just looking around at all the scenery. I loved running on the other side of the river. It was just so beautiful. I just soaked it all in. I When I realized I wasn't going to meet my goal time wise, I completely let that go. And it was, I
Yeah.
think I'd also heard it on your podcast, like, you have the first goal and you have the second goal and you have the third. And ultimately my goal was to finish, right? And so I was like, I'm going to enjoy the journey because I'm going to finish. That's not a question. And so we're going to enjoy the journey. So I really did just try to enjoy the journey. And I told myself, I think I was around 19 miles and I was getting really tired. And I was just like, okay, this is long and it's taking me longer than I thought it would. And I said, you know what? If I never get to run another marathon, I don't want to look back and say, I wish I had taken time to enjoy this one. And so that's what I just told myself.
Right.
If this is my only marathon, I'm going to enjoy it. So that's what kept me going when it got hard.
I love that. That's great. Yeah, it's like, oh wait, I'm gonna sound like a broken record as well, but like your first marathon's your PR no matter what. So it's the blank
Yes.
slate. It's the get the first experience out of the way and see where your running journey takes you from there. Like it's
Yep.
the let's just enjoy it. So I love that you had that
Yes.
moment too with yourself during the race. That's awesome. I love that.
Yes.
Well, cool. So at that point, when you're going through all that, how where were we at mileage wise? Like getting closer to 20 ish, somewhere around
Yeah, it was
there.
probably getting close to 20. Right
Hmm.
around 20 is when I saw my family again. And I, took some at that point. I had some Sour Patch Kids in my bag, which I never use candy for. I'm not a big candy eater, just because it's not good for you. But I was like, I said, somebody grab me the candy out of my bag. And so they grabbed it. And I was like, oh, this is so good. I was like treating myself, I guess. And then my brother-in-law, who's a lot younger than me, he's like my baby sister and husband. He looked at me and he was like, "Okay, I'm going to finish this with you." And I was like, I just started crying. I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Yep, well, I'm going to run this with you." And so he finished the race with me, which was just so sweet. I think about 23 miles, because at that point there was hydration at every mile, I think. So he ended up
Yeah.
taking my
Yeah.
vest and wearing my vest for the last 3 miles. I think he wore my vest. So that I was like, oh, I'm lighter now. And
Yeah.
he just talked to me, laughed with me, kept encouraging me. I mean, I can't tell you how many times he was like, do you see what you're doing? Like, you're a beast. Like, he just was so encouraging. And I would be like, okay, I need to walk for a second. And he was like, that's fine. We can walk as long as you want.
Yeah.
He just, because he was there just to support me. So I didn't have the pressure of feeling like I was holding him back from his race because he was there for
Right.
me. So it was a huge
Right.
encouragement and just gave me such a boost for those last 5 miles.
I love that. That's great. And then we get to the long downhill that is Richmond's finish line, where you feel like you're. I don't know about how you felt, but like as soon as I knew I'd heard about this downhill, and as soon as it was there, it just felt like it kept going and going and going, and like the anticipation of seeing the finish line. I'm like, where is this freaking finish line? What was that experience like for you?
Oh, it was so incredible. So my sister who'd run the half marathon, she came and found us at about 25 miles. So I had my sister and
Yeah.
my brother-in-law, and we are running. And all of a sudden I start hearing the crowd, and I start hearing that, and I'm slow. So it wasn't as much of a crowd, but there was still quite a crowd. And I start hearing the
Yeah.
announcer like saying names. And I was like, oh my gosh. And that hill, I've done it, I'd done it 3 times before.
Yeah.
I'm like coming, and I literally was like, okay, I don't want to be, and I'd already planned for this. I don't want to be the person that legs are like jelly and then they end up rolling down the hill. So I'm like, okay, keep your legs
Right.
intact.
Right.
Keep your legs intact. And we're
Yeah.
coming, it's a long downhill, but then you get to the end where it
It
really
is.
goes down. And that's only like what, a tenth
Yes.
of a mile or something. And so I look over, there's my husband and my sisters and my kids, and they're screaming and yelling and so proud of me. And I just take
Mm.
off. I sprinted. Well, I look back at video. It wasn't as fast as I thought it was. It felt a whole lot faster.
It
My
never
poor
is. It
legs.
never is.
So, but as I'm running, like, because there wasn't a lot of people at that point, they called out my name, and I heard my name, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I just went across the finish line, tears running down my face. It was just, my brother-in-law videoed it the whole time. It was just something I can't put into words. I had so much
Yeah.
pride for myself. I knew I'd done the work and I knew I could do it, but knowing you can do it and actually doing it, I just was like, I will never forget that feeling of running and crossing that finish line, hearing my name being called right before I cross it. It was just indescribable.
Yeah. I love that. I got chills a little bit. That's great. The name calling, the family around you, that feeling is so hard to describe, but it is like an unmatched feeling, especially for your first marathon and feeling it for the first time. It's like
Yes,
that, yeah, that's incredible. Um, oh my God. So for our first marathon experience, your day went fairly well. I would
it
say like there
did.
weren't any major hiccups. There weren't any major like, oh my gosh, things, the world's endings that, that we hear in some of these marathon stories. It sounds like all in all, your training really paid off and you were able to just like enjoy your day. Is that how it felt when you crossed the finish line? Like were you able to feel that?
Yes, and I think like there was different things along the way. At one point, I think it was around 23 miles, my left calf seized up so bad, and I literally
Mm,
looked at my
mm,
brother-in-law. I was like, I don't think I can't move. And so we
yeah,
took probably 3 or 4 minutes and just stretched out both of my calves, but especially that one. So at that point I was like, but I was like, again,
yeah,
I will walk if I have to. And then we walked it out, and then all of a sudden I slowly started running again. So there were little things like that, but I think overall, when I accepted I'm not trying to beat everybody else. This is a PR no matter what. I did keep telling myself that, like, I'm PRing today. So that's all that matters. Once I let those things go, it takes the pressure off. If you're trying to meet a goal and you miss it, sometimes that can be very defeating. But I had gone in telling myself, Nancy, this is your goal, but this is your next goal. And this is like, I set myself
yeah,
up a whole bunch of goals to where at the end of the day, I did beat my goal, which was to finish the race. And I did that. And
yeah,
so I
uh,
finished it. I didn't
yeah,
crawl across the finish line. I didn't walk across the finish line. I ran across that finish line. And ultimately that's what I
yeah.
wanted to do. So yes, there were hard things along the way, but I just never stopped smiling. All of the photographers' pictures of me, when I finally got the email with the pictures, I'm smiling in all of them. I've got my
I
arms
love
up.
that.
I'm because I was so grateful to do something I never would have ever dreamed that I would be able to do.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that so much. Well, two questions. I always like to ask a
Okay.
couple questions after the finish line story. So, first one is like you've talked about it a lot throughout this episode about like the type of person you were growing up and how that changed throughout your running journey and how that came to kind of a fruition crossing that finish line at the end. But I always love to ask about like what did that mean for you, right? Like crossing the finish line. What does that mean for you? What are you taking forward with you now that you've ran your first marathon?
Um, so many things. One thing I think I just am now trying to encourage everyone to move. Start small. You don't start out running a marathon. I don't know many people that just say, "I've never run before. I think I'm going to train for a marathon." Generally, it's a journey to get to that point. Some people take 20 years. Some people take 5 years. But you just start small. Just start moving.
Yeah,
I think it's so important, especially in our digital age, that we are moving anyway. But I especially like, I just have a desire for middle-aged women, especially moms, to just like, you can do it. Like there is nothing holding you back except for you. So get out and move. Like, and that was the biggest thing for me. Like I proved to myself that I could do something I never imagined I could. And I put the work in. I worked hard. I worked my butt off for
yeah.
5 months, but I did it. And so now I feel like sometimes I'll even say, somebody will ask me a question like, "Oh, do you think you can do blah, blah, blah?" And I'm like, I ran a marathon. I can do anything.
I can do
There's
anything.
just this,
Yeah.
I just feel kind of like invincible. Like when you work hard enough, you can do anything you put your mind to. So
Yeah. I love that. And you answered my second question too, so you nailed that one. I was going to ask about working moms and like if you had any advice for them, but I think you kind of nailed that there with yeah, just put yourself first. Don't be afraid to do it and go for it. I think that's the best piece of advice you could offer someone like that. That's
yes,
awesome.
yes.
Amazing. Well, cool. Well, we'll wrap up with some of our fun questions here, and then we'll talk
Okay.
about what's coming up next for you. So, I always
Okay.
give the disclaimer before we talk about fuel and shoes that this is your own journey. Please try everything and anything when it comes to fuel, and same thing with shoes. Please go to your local running store, get your feet measured, and figure out what's best for you. But for you, what
Yes.
have you liked for fuel over time?
I am one of those people that loves gels. I have friends that hate them, the texture. I think I think they're a great, easy way. I can do it while I'm running. I love the gummies, but I find that I have to like walk to eat them. And unless you're already walking, that's fine. So I will have both available. But if I'm just
Yeah.
continuously running, the gels are easiest for me. I do also love the waffles, especially I never did those before, like with half marathon. I didn't need anything extra, but you do really start to get hungry. And so I did it. I want to say I did waffles around like 9 miles, 15 and 19, something like that, just to give something a little in my stomach because the gels aren't putting anything. You don't feel like you're really getting much, but the waffles really, I think, just put some nutrition in there that felt a little more than just sugar.
Yeah. Love that. Cool. And then what about shoes? What have you liked for shoes over time?
So I started in Brooks Adrenaline. Loved them. I overpronate, but I had switched to Glycerin GTS, and I really, really, really love those. I did have to go half a size bigger even during my training period. I started having issues with my toes going numb, and thankfully, when I switched to half a size larger, which is crazy to me, it's huge, and so I didn't need to think I needed to go that big, but it made a huge difference. I didn't have any more issues with toe numbness. So.
Cool. Love that. Love Brooks. They're great. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. All right. And then I know you just ran this first marathon, so I'm not sure if you've thought about like what's coming up next for you other than like you'd love to run another one. But what are you thinking for what's coming up next in your running journey?
So I'm running Shamrock. I'm doing the Dolphin Challenge, and that's in Virginia Beach. So I'm doing the
Fun.
8K on Saturday, the half on Sunday. There was this little part of me as soon as I finished the marathon. Should I switch that to the full marathon? It's all flat. And then I was like, no, don't slow down. Because
Yeah.
I have, like I said, I've had some issues with my hips. So I'm running that. And then I'm already signed up for the Richmond half again this coming fall. So I think I'm going to stick with some
Fun.
halves for a while, really work on some strengthening and just work on my core and my hips and give my family a break from the 5-month training, which is marathons. But I definitely will run another marathon, if not 2 or 3 or
Love
5.
it.
I don't know.
Right. We'll see. Yeah.
Yes,
It
but
never
there will
ends.
be
Once
another
you get the
one.
bug, there's no
Yes.
telling. Yeah.
They say it's either you never
Amazing.
run another one or you keep running them. And I
Exactly.
wasn't sure how I would feel. Like during training, I'm like, I don't know if I can never do this again. And as soon as I finished, I was like, oh, yes, I am definitely running another marathon.
Yes. Oh, amazing. I can't wait to see what you decide on. Okay. Well, sweet. Well, Nancy, thank you so much again for coming on and telling your
Yes.
first marathon story. It was incredible. I can't wait to see what you end up signing up for when you do decide on your next full marathon. And if anybody wants to follow along with you, where can they find you?
So on Instagram, I'm Pauley on the Run. So that's Pauley on the Run. So you can find me there.
Amazing. All right, cool. Well, I will link your socials in the show notes as well. But yeah, just
Thank
thank
you.
again for coming on. It was awesome getting to know you a little bit. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the My First Marathon podcast. For more stories, tips, and resources, head to myfirstmarathonpodcast.com. And if you want access to bonus episodes, exclusive resources, and extra support for your training, make sure you check out the community at myfirstmarathonpodcast.com/exclusives. You can also follow along with us on socials, Instagram and TikTok. That's at myfirstmarathonpod. If you want to follow along with my personal journey, that's at tay.says. Whether you're training, recovering, or just thinking about signing up, you belong here. I'm so excited that you're here, and we'll see you on the next one.